Hello and welcome back to 30 Days to Learn Photoshop. This is day 16, the Shape and Custom Shape Tools. In today's lesson, we're going to look at how to use the Shapes and Custom Shapes tool, and we're also going to learn how to install and use custom shape sets. So let's go ahead and switch to Photoshop and we'll consider the shape tools now. So we're going to create a new document. It's going to be a web size. It's going to be 1024 by 768. That's all fine. Let's just put it to 16-bit for argument's sake. And we're going to show you the custom shape tool. It's selected by pressing U, and there are 6 different options here. We've got a rectangle tool, a rounded rectangle tool, an ellipse tool, a polygon tool, a line tool, and a custom shape tool. All got varying degrees of options and changes we can make. So let's start with arguably the simplest. This is the rectangle tool. We can create rectangles with it just by clicking and dragging. It will create it in our foreground colour, or i.e. the colour we've set up here. And it creates each new shape as a new layer, as you can see down there. So that's the rectangle tool. Now here you've got some additional options for the rectangle tools. In fact, pretty much all of these tools. We can create a square. So rather than having to, if we just go back to normal mode, unconstrained, if we shift and click here, we can make a square. However, if you wanted to make a series of squares and you didn't want to have to press shift every time, you could literally just set this to square mode. So it's a mode for squares. And you can also add a fixed size. So we could set it to be a 500 pixel shape or 500 pixel square. And also you can do a proportional size. And then the final option at the bottom is snap to pixels. So we could actually have it snap into place rather than just us free aligning it. So that's the rectangle box. All of the shape tools have the ability to be add, subtracted, intersected and overlapped using those options there. So let's just show you that. Let's create a shape, and then the next shape we add is going to be taken off that. The overlapping one, wherever it overlaps, creates a shape, and this one basically does the same thing but in reverse. So those tools can be used with pretty much every shape tool. And that's the rectangle tool. Very simple, nice and easy to use. One thing you'll want to be able to do is resize shapes, probably. So let's say you've dropped that in there. You think you're happy with it, come back to it, a couple of hours later you want to change the size. All you need to do is use the move tool, and the move tool works on layers, shapes, text, everything. So just click on the layer, make sure you've got all of these ticked on and it's set to layer, and you can resize it, rotate it, squash it, whatever you want to do using the transform tool. So let's look at some of the options we've got now then. We've got a rounded rectangle tool, which, as it says on the label, creates a rounded rectangle. So we can see here we've got a radius box, which we didn't have on the previous shape. And it creates these rounded edges onto the corners of a box. And if you set it to the maximum, which I think is 99 pixels, like so, we can then see there's a considerable difference in those shapes. We've got the option on this tool again to do it as a square, as a fixed size from the center, or snap to pixels. So that's the rounded rectangle tool. Ellipse tool, very similar, it works the same. If you don't press shift, you can create ovals and what appear to be like the ends of cylinders, but if you press and hold shift, you create circles. Again, works with all of the add, subtract and custom shape tools, and also they will interact with each other. So let's just show you that. If we create a rectangle and then we minus a circle from it, you can see those interact together. So the circle, again, you can do it as a fixed size, you can do it proportional, you can draw the diameter, so you're drawing actually the size you want it to be. So it's just slightly different ways of being able to create the circle. So next we've got the polygon tool, which is for creating shapes, hexagons, triangles, octagons, basically a number of sides. So we're going to work on a triangle here. You can use shift and hold it down to align it and make sure your triangle's got perfectly level and accurate sides. And also we can set the number of sides to create polygons, to create octagons, and when you're just pressing down, if you press and hold shift, you can align them, go upwards, and that aligns it on the level. So that's a polygon tool. Options for this are a little bit different. If we set this to be a 5-sided polygon and then tick this mode here, which is star mode, we create a 5-pointed star. So rather than it being 5-sided, it's got 5 points. We can change the indentation on the sides here, and also we can smoothen out the gaps. So instead we've got a nice sharp crisp star, or one with rounded edges, more like a sort of sheriff badge shape. We can smooth the indents as we've done there, which are these indentations into the actual shape, and we can also smooth the corners, so we get a bit more of a kind of a starfish sort of shape. And then if we set a radius, such as 30, that will actually set the size of that shape. And if we turn off smooth indents, we can create sort of flower shapes. So that's the polygon tool. A little bit different, and again works with all the add, subtract, take away from, color options, resizing, everything. Now the line tool, most people think this is just a line tool, which yeah, it's quite handy, but you can, as I've just spoiled by accident, set arrowheads onto the ends of your line. And if we press start, we get wherever we start from, it's got an arrowhead. We can change the size and the length and the width and the concavity of the rear of the arrowhead. So lots of different options there. Great for making quick annotations and notes and that sort of thing. And to set the thickness of the line, set the weight in this box here. So if we drag it upwards, you see we get a bigger line, a thicker line, and a larger arrowhead. And then finally we've got the custom shape tools. Now these are a little bit different. They are shapes that you can download. There are some included in the default setup of Photoshop. So let's just show you those. And they have kind of basically icons or symbols that are pre-made that you can then drop into your designs and work. For example, if you were creating a map, you could drop this pin on to show I highlight an area or a location. That's all completely changeable. You can change the colours just like any of the custom shapes, and likewise you can use it along with other shapes. So if we had that shape there, let's just delete that, drag this across, go back to our custom shape tool, we can subtract our new shape from this shape here. And in order to select a previous shape that you've then clicked off, go into the path selection tool, which is selected by pressing A, click on the shape, and you get these slightly different transformation controls. That's the normal transformation control. If you click on it with the direct path selection tool, it actually just has 4 at each corner. And then we can use the subtraction, and we can remove a pin size from that. If you didn't quite get it right, click on it and you can actually drag it within that shape or extend it. We can change the colour, we can change the kind of cutting path of it and all kinds of stuff. So completely editable even after you've made them, which is really, really handy. And you can actually add more of these on, which we're going to show you how to do now. You can purchase them on the internet. You can also find them from some websites for free. There's all kinds of icons and symbols available. Let's just show you where we purchased ours from. We got ours from Graphic River, which is a fantastic website, especially for extending Photoshop with their add-ons category. And this is a grunge frame set. So somebody's actually taken the time to create grunge frames as shapes in Photoshop so that we don't have to. And we're going to show you what we can use these for now. So if we go into the drop down menu, which is where you change the shape you're actually wanting to use, and you can go to load shapes. This is just like brushes, just like all the other tools within Photoshop. And you can see here we've got the download, we've unzipped it, and we've got a CSH file, which actually is a grunge, which is a shape file, sorry. Because shapes are more like mathematical formulas rather than actual images, they are technically kind of programs or scripts. So we just click on this .csh file, open it up, and that will then load into this palette here. And you can see we've got all these grunge frames down at the bottom. Now these work just as a custom shape. We can place them in as they are intended, as the right perspective. We can rotate them, resize them, drag them, cut them away from each other just like this. And they are really, really great tools because they help extend your designs. There's plenty available. You can make your own, and it's just a really interesting feature that Photoshop has. So that is the shapes tools. There's plenty of them, all under U, so you will need to press Shift and U to cycle through them. And one last thing you're going to need to know is sometimes you're going to want to apply an effect or draw onto a shape. And unfortunately they don't work just like a normal layer. Because you see we've clicked on the brush tool here, we've created this shape, it's got its own layer, that's all fine. When we hover over it, we're getting the, sorry, this is kind of forbidden icon. So you need to rasterize custom shapes in order to edit them. So click on them and you'll see we get this error or this alert regarding how it will no longer be a vector mask. Do you want to rasterize a shape? Press OK, and then now we can actually draw onto that layer. We can raise it just like any other layer, and we can do all kinds of stuff with it. But it does mean it loses its shape powers, which are the ability to be able to resize them so they don't get blurry. Whereas if we kept resizing this, because it's now pixelized or rasterized, it will actually be bitty and have some severe noise at the edges the more we distort it. So that's one thing you have to do, unfortunately, with shapes in order to be able to work with them. That includes things like putting filters on them. It has to be rasterized already so that we can actually work with them. So what did we learn in today's lesson? Well, we looked at how to add, edit and use shapes and custom shapes. And your task for the lesson is to find a shape set on the web like we used and install it. Practice using the shapes as well as skewing and distorting them. Next time on 30 Days to Learn Photoshop, we'll be looking at the Type tool. Thanks for listening.